Hello, listeners. Are you concerned that the planet is at a critical tipping point and time is running out? Do you believe your life purpose is to make a positive difference in the world? If so, you might be a member of the Golden Motorcycle Gang. Hello, everybody, and welcome to New Consciousness Review. I'm Miriam Knight, and our guests today are Jack Canfield and William Gladstone, the co-authors of a very timely new book, The Golden Motorcycle Gang, a story of transformation. Now, Jack Canfield is most widely known as the co-author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, which has sold more than 500 million copies worldwide, and another bestseller, The Success Principles. He's a leading figure in the self-help movement, is considered America's #1 success coach, and was a featured teacher in the movies The Secret and Tapping the Source. Jack is also the CEO of the Canfield Training Group and the founder of the Transformational Leadership Council. William Gladstone is best known for his international bestseller, The 12. He is also the co-author of Tapping the Source and co-producer of the film of the same name. Now, in addition, he's a literary agent for many best-selling authors, including Eckhart Tolle, Neil Donald Walsh, and he's the founder of Waterside Productions, as well as a trustee of the International Club of Budapest. So, my two underachievers, welcome, gentlemen.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Pleasure, Miriam.
Hello, Bill. Jack, let's kick off by telling us about the vision that you had that inspired the Golden Motorcycle Gang book.
Well, I was in graduate school at the University of Massachusetts in the School of Education, probably around 1973, something like that. And I was in a class where they asked us to close our eyes and go back to the time when you chose to become a teacher. And most people went back to their fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Tuttle, who inspired them, or they went to a high school teacher who inspired them, or maybe they taught in a summer camp one year and they realized they had this teaching ability and wanted to use it. I, quite shockingly to me and everyone else in the class, went back to before I was born, just flipped into this sense of being a spirit, flying through the air, looking down on Earth, and going, oh my God, there's a war going on down there. I was born in 1944, and it was World War II, and I thought, I ought to go down and help out. You know, this is like passing an accident on the freeway. You'd stop if you were the first one there. So all these other spirits that were with me, which I kind of have nicknamed the Golden Motorcycle Gang because we were all pretty irreverent, kind of like the Hells Angels driving on their motorcycles, you know, with their beards and their leather jackets down the highway. And so I just said, let's go down and help out. And they went, come on, you're being codependent. You know, don't do that. We're on vacation here. I said, no, I got to go. So basically a number of us decided to come down and be born. And as you know, once you make that decision, you kind of forget you made it and you're in Earth life. And so I was sitting there, you know, just having a normal childhood and college education and so forth. And then this event happened where I had this awareness and I realized, wow, I'm not just a history teacher. I'm a teacher with a capital T. And that's what my job is here. And so I referred to this group as the Golden Motorcycle Gang. And I started meeting people probably around my late 30s, early 40s, who I had this amazing resonance with, this harmonic sense of connectedness. And I would say, wow, you're a member of the Golden Motorcycle Gang. And they would go, what? And I'd tell them the story, and they'd go, yeah, I guess I am. Mm-hmm. So Bill and I were having dinner one night, and I told him that story, and he said, wow, I think I'm a member. And I said, yeah, absolutely you are. I gave him this little golden motorcycle that I had bought about 20 of these from some Chinese import company, and I was handing them out to people who I'd meet. And that's how the book came about.
That's a great story. You know, one of the most fascinating aspects of the book to me, Jack, was your personal story. What was it about your life story that led you into the human potential movement?
Well, it was really quite by accident. I mean, I think if I look back on it from this perspective, I realized that a lot of my childhood, which was, you know, I had an abusive father, an alcoholic, and so forth, that I was being kind of made more sensitive and compassionate and hypersensitive to those kind of things. And so I had that background coming up. But I think what happened for me was two things. One, when I was in college, I took this course called Social Relations 10. And it was really about human intercommunication and dynamic, kind of an old encounter group back in those days. And that woke me up to the fact that I had feelings. I mean, I was someone who was just pretty much in my head all the time. The second thing that happened was a couple of years later, I'm in graduate school. I'm sitting in a laundromat, minding my own business, reading some book, and this guy comes up and says, "Put your book down and talk to me." And I went, "Okay." His name was Frank Brody. He was a graduate student in economics, and he was trying to figure out for his doctorate, if you were to spend $1 in Chicago to improve the city, where would you spend it? Would it be education, beautification, working with the corporations, whatever? So anyway, he was a cool guy, and we got to be good friends, and he invited me to this Living Philosopher series where they had these different people that were amazing beings coming in every week and giving a lecture. And this guy named Herbert Otto was the director of the National Center for Human Potential. And he talked about we were only using 5% of our potential. And I thought, wow, I want to use more. So I went up to him and we talked, and he guided me to the W. Clement and Jesse B. Stone Foundation, which had a program called Oasis, which was like a growth center, much like Esalen or Omega or one of those places where people go for weekend workshops. Anyway, I took 30 weekend workshops in 1 year. It was like a hungry person that hadn't been fed for that emotional, spiritual connectedness part of myself. And that's really how I got into it. And then the other part was I started teaching these things in my classroom to my kids, and kids who were dropouts and kids who were, I would have kids sneak into school who were on probation, take my class and sneak out again. So it was amazing.
They didn't want to lose their street cred.
Yeah, they didn't want to lose that, but they also didn't want to get caught, and so forth. But they wanted to learn what I was teaching. And some of those kids who were gang members have gone on to be CEOs of corporations. And that's when I realized, wow, I was onto something here, that we really needed to be focusing on the development of human potential. So that's how it happened.
Wow. It's interesting you mentioned Clement Stone. I loved a quote that you ascribed to him in the book. You said that that when working with people, the important thing is to focus on where your interests and goals overlap and not where they differ.
Yes.
That is so important.
Yeah, I was literally in a meeting with him, very, very brief meeting, and he was a very, very, very conservative Republican, and I was a very, very, very liberal Democrat. And he said, we can fight about what we disagree, or we can realize we both want the same thing. And when it comes to education, we want to empower kids. We want to focus on, helping gang members get out of gangs and become, find work and so forth. So let's not argue about our philosophies and all that. Let's focus on education, because that's where we agree. And that was his philosophy with everyone. That's why he was so successful. Mm-hmm. He always focused on what can we do together that neither of us could do alone, and let's go do that. And result of that, I still to this day live that principle. It's been very helpful for me.
Yeah. You described your awakening during the Vietnam protest era to the value of not blindly following authority. Do you see any parallels to the protest movement springing up today?
Totally. I think that whether it's the Tea Party on the right or the Occupy Wall Street and Occupy every other city on the left, what happened in the Arab Spring with all these people rising up against dictatorships, that's really what's happening is people are realizing that they don't have to follow blindly, the government or the leaders, that they can solve their own problems and stand up against things that don't work. And when you've got, pretty much 20% of Americans, that's 1 out of every 5 that are unemployed, we have an economic system that's not doing what it needs to do. And so it has to be recreated. I don't think we need to do away with capitalism totally, but we definitely need to change some of the structure of the money that flows into Washington that controls everything so that it all goes up to the rich. And you see these people, I've just been studying the movement the last couple of weeks. What they're trying to do is beautiful in terms of the way they're trying to govern themselves, the nonviolence, the communication, the support, the library they've started there. I mean, I think it's very inspirational.
Mm.